Paracording. It's fun. It's a great hobby, and you can use it to make cool things for your friends, for your family, for yourself. But there are some brave souls out there that make it a profession. So today is my first of hopefully many conversations with creators, where we talk to those people who are making a go of doing this for a living, taking their hobby and making it their livelihood. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope to have many more of these. So let's talk to a creator. Okay, everybody. Today we are going to have a conversation with Zeke Bentley, who is the owner and proprietor of Paracord by Zeke. So I guess I'm going to start off with Zeke. How did you get started working with Paracord?
Oh man, I was 9 years old, and my dad taught me how to do the crown sonnet, which I don't know why he was doing it. He doesn't really braid stuff that often. It just happened. And I kind of never stopped. I was I was on the internet as soon as I could be, learning how to do different things. I was making my own belts and bracelets by the time I was a teenager and ordering paracord in bulk, and I just kind of never stopped. I love it.
Yeah, I hear you. My wife bought me a knife, and she wrapped the handle. It was a hunting knife, and she wrapped the handle. And she bought 100 feet and only wound up using like 10. Mm-hmm. And she's like, well, I don't know if you could do anything with it. And it was just like she opened Pandora's box. And next thing you know, I'm like ordering it like that. So I think everybody's got that story, but that's kind of cool. Did you ever find out what your dad was doing with it?
He made a keychain. I don't know why he wanted to make himself a keychain. I don't know if he was bored. I don't know where he learned how to do it, but it's still laying around his house somewhere. I saw it recently.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you've done a lot. What has been your favorite project?
Favorite project? It's got to be my first whip. The first whip that I ever made, because at that point I had been braiding and weaving until my fingers hurt for years. But the first time I made something that I could get to, break the sound barrier and make that noise, it was very exciting. I was giggly for the rest of the day. That's probably my favorite, I think.
Did you put a little cracker at the end, or did you actually get to break that whip sound because you were able to do it just right?
I put crackers on the end of them when they're done. The first time I cracked my whip, it was the first belly, which, you've got your two bellies and the overlay. It was the belly, and I was whipping it as hard as I could, and I got it to do it in my kitchen.
Oh, man. I bet you that was an adrenaline rush like you haven't had before.
It was great. The wife was proud of me on the first one. After that, she got pretty annoyed. She doesn't like me cracking them in the house.
Yeah, I hear you, man. I hear you. So what color and how much cord did it take?
That first one, it's black. I still have it. It's all black with a little bit of purple micro paracord, that little 95, I think. I put in the handle with it, so it's got a tiny hint of purple in it. And it's still hanging in my living room.
That's cool. So what, you have it hanging over the fireplace, or you're ready to defend your house?
I have so many whips laying around the house now because I was making them before I started selling. So I was just making whips to make whips. I ended up having to put command strip hooks up in my living room just so I had a place to put the stinking thing. So they're pretty much decoration at this point.
That's cool. So what would you say was the hardest project you had ever done, and what made it so hard?
So learning how to make a Turk's head knot was
Mm-hmm.
definitely the hardest thing I ever had to do when it comes to braiding. The Slats Paracord Rescue Belt, which was one of the first belts I made when I was like 13, that was really tough to get consistent, and it was a lot to work with. Took a long time. But the first time that I made a Turk's head knot, I spent like a week on it of just getting it nearly done and then looking at it and realizing that I had completely not made a knot. It was all just looped around. It took me forever to do. It was one of the most frustrating projects, but now it's my favorite thing that I do. I do it all the time, and I make extremely complicated ones now.
I'll be honest, I still have problems with the Turk's head. That one is just, there's a couple that baffle me, and that's one of them.
That was absolutely the biggest thing. I had tried it a few times over the years, and I just got angry every time that I did it. And then I started making whips, and I had to put something on the heel. I still have a picture of my first heel knot. It was technically a Turk's head. It's one of the ugliest things I've ever made. But yeah, it took a lot of work to get good at them.
So what would you say your favorite knot is, or favorite weave?
Favorite weave. So favorite weave would be, what's that?
I was going to say, and if you want to say, oh, my favorite for bracelet is this, or belts is this, would just whatever.
Yeah. Well, definitely my favorite weave, I think, would be like the I think it's called Trenza Patria or Patriots braid, which is an expanding technique that you can get up. I've seen people do, I think, 18 strands, was the most I ever saw. I use that for belts sometimes. That's satisfying to look at. It's really nice. I like watching the back braiding when I braid. It's one of my favorite parts. I look down, and I've got like a mirror image developing below it.
Mm-hmm.
So I enjoy that one a lot. My favorite knot is probably just a standard diamond like button knot. I use that all the time. I probably overuse it. It's all over my house. My zippers have it. I put them in my hoodie strings. I'll tie a diamond knot in them. I love that knot.
So where did you learn to tie knots? I'll say my side note, my uncle is a huge fisherman, and he went and bought every knot book in the world. And when he found out I got into paracord, he talked my ear off about all these different knots and everything else. So, where did you learn? How did you learn to do knots?
Definitely the internet. My dad taught me a few basic ones, but he wasn't super into it, so he only knew a few basic ones. But YouTube was life-changing when it came to braiding and tying. That's everything I've learned on the internet pretty much.
Yeah, I think between that and my son is a scout, and I've been learning some knots I never knew about and that I've used for paracording with in his scout manuals. So there's some pretty interesting ones. You think you're only going to use it for a tenth, and then I'm like, no, I could use it for this or that or what.
Yep. Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
What color or what pattern or color do you wind up using the most whenever you are doing projects? Or do you have none?
Black is often, because lately I have not been making very much for myself, just because I've had so many orders, primarily whip orders that I've been making. So the most common color has been black lately. It'll be black with something else. It's usually a black and green or a black and red.
Mm-hmm.
So I go through thousands of feet of black every couple of months. Every month or so I think I have to reorder another spool of it. Definitely black.
You're to the point where you're ordering 1,000-foot spools?
Yeah, yep, pretty much. If they had something bigger, I'd probably be buying that. I wait till I have to get two, and then I usually get free shipping with them, and so I order a few. It's all over my house. It's bad. There's rope everywhere.
I guess it's a good thing they don't do it in those big wooden spools like they put cable and electrical cord on, because I think there's a bunch of us that would probably be ordering it in that size too.
Pretty much. It'd be my coffee table. A couple miles of cord sitting in my living room.
Yep. You know what? It would make it really easy to do a project then, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, what kind of cord do you use? Is it 550? Do you use micro? A little bit of everything?
A little bit of everything, depending on what I'm working on, what I feel like. If I see a little bit of micro cord laying around at the store, I'll pick that up and I'll do something with it. I primarily use 550. I just go through thousands of feet of that. But I like using micro cord. You can get a lot finer with it, but definitely 550 primarily. I make like pocket watch chains out of the micro cord.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Like the full goes across the vest type pocket watch chains, the old school ones, or or something more like so you can just put it in your pocket and
both.
Attach it to your belt loop. Oh, really? Cool.
Yeah, I've done both. Because you have to have at least like 4 strands to make something decent looking, so it ends up a lot chunkier than the chain. But so that it always ends up looking a little bit more. I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. Something like a scout would be carrying than an actual like pretty chain. Yeah. So it always ends up kind of looking like the little short ones, even though they're long. But I do both. I've done a lot.
What have you? What would you say though is like the most interesting thing you have done yourself, and what is the most interesting thing you've been asked to make for a job?
Ooh, man, that's a hard one. I don't know. I think here we've got I've been making a lot of leashes recently that have a key ring in the handle, and I'll get a specialty clip that somebody asks for, and they'll want like a herringbone knot at the base of the handle for a grip knot. I'm working on one actually, like right now. It's half finished. It's got a traffic loop, I think is what the gentleman called it. It's a foot. You've got a handle a foot from the clip, and then you've got your other handle up at the top. So you've got 2 handles built into it, and there's going to be a herringbone knot at each one is the plan right now. Again, I don't know how it's going to work out because it's a pretty weird one.
That's definitely different.
Yeah.
So what led you to kind of become a pro? I think we all start out as a hobbyist. I know I did. And it wound up being somebody said, hey, can you make, I made a belt. And they're like, hey, will you make me one? I'll pay for the cord. And it kind of, you have that light bulb moment. Is that what happened to you or?
Kind of. So I actually opened my Etsy shop 8 years ago now. I opened it and then didn't get any sales on it for a couple months, and then I just shut it down. But I only offered like 1 or 2 random items that I had made. I figured I'd see if anybody purchased them. It kind of happened because I had so much crap laying around my house that I've made in the past. I mean, there's just projects on projects laying around, and I figured I'm not going to be able to keep all of this. I don't want to throw anything that I make away, and I've been giving stuff away. I figured I'd give it a shot. It did not work out the first time, and then the second time, I actually had a guy ask me to make him a whip because I'd been making them for my family. I'd made like probably 8 at that point in the span of a month. It was all I was doing for a while. But he asked for a whip. I built him a whip. I sold it to him for like the cost of the materials because wasn't confident with it at that point. And I thought, hey, maybe somebody else will want this. And I reopened the shop. It's the same shit. It actually says that I've been on there for like 8 years, I think. I think it was 8 years. It's been a long time. But it says that I've been on there forever, and my shop is less than a year old at this point. At least the new version of it. Yeah.
So, I think for those of us who want to get online, what recommendations would you have as far as, do you think Etsy's good? Do you think it's better to go through Facebook? What are your thoughts?
So Etsy is pretty good. I've had a good experience with Etsy. I've had trouble when I first got started because I had to talk to somebody about they had suspended my shop and it didn't say why anywhere. And I was trying to find it for like 2 weeks. I was trying to get my shop open back up. It turned out they needed my tax information and I hadn't finalized it, but it is just fair warning. If you use Etsy, you will never talk to someone who works for Etsy. It's completely automated. There's no phone number. I've never been able to find a phone number. I spent hours searching for one. I sent a couple of emails in. I never got an email back. I have never talked to somebody who works for Etsy, even though they've paid me thousands of dollars at this point.
So how does that work with
Etsy?
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, they're a good platform for connecting with customers. They're not good at talking to their sellers.
Gotcha. Are they, so basically everybody pays Etsy, and then Etsy, takes their cut and then sends you the rest?
Correct, yeah. So people will, you use Etsy because it's a trusted large corporation. You know that you're not giving your, credit card information to a random person on the internet. So they get to filter all that out, and their cut, I think, is 5% for that.
Okay.
And so you just pretty much, you calculate how much time am I going to put into this, how much is it going to cost me to build this, and then, how much profit on top of that, and then 5%, because Etsy's going to take that, you kind of calculate it in.
I mean, that's not bad if you think about it. I think eBay is now doing 12% or so.
Are they really?
Facebook, yeah, something like that. For lower price, it's like the higher the price, the lower the percentage. But I think if it's under 20, it's like 10 or 12%. I may be wrong. If anybody from eBay is on, you're welcome to ping me and correct me. But yeah, I do some IT stuff in the background, and I'll get old equipment and I'll sell it. And I had something I sold for like $10, and they took over $1 of it.
Oh wow. Yeah. So that'll cut into your profit.
Yeah, and and then they're also taking a cut of any shipping cost. So if you sell it for 10 and you charge $3 to ship, they're taking $1 from that $13. They're taking a percentage. Yeah, and then PayPal. If you take PayPal, it's going to take a percentage on top of it. So.
Yep.
Yeah. So do you go to any like events and sell in person? I know now it's not really the time to do it, but previously did you go to like craft fairs or whatever and try and sell your stuff, or have you mainly just done online?
So I have pretty much only done online because I got started right before COVID, but I have friends and acquaintances who have sold in person with success. I've seen people who do really well selling expensive items in person. I've been to Renaissance festivals where people are making pretty basic stuff and they're making a huge profit margin on it. So I mean, if people are interested in selling their product, especially you're making it anyway, you can do it. I mean, even if you're not willing to sell online, you just have to find the place to do it, and you can make a job out of your hobby for sure.
Yeah. It's I've been finding personally with COVID and everything, I've been doing my belt sales and such just totally dropped. But I've been using a lot of my time to make Paracord bracelets, survival bracelets for Operation Gratitude, as well as I make a lot of keychains for Boy Scout donations. So if somebody donates, they get a little thing. So just to kind of keep that muscle memory going, you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you can get rusty if you're not doing it often.
Oh yeah. So would you say there's been any disadvantages though with you selling online versus in person?
There are definitely some people who are unwilling to purchase from you online or don't like buying online. So there's definitely a group of people that I'm missing out on by selling online. There's just no way around it. Some people don't want to send emails back and forth and get stuff in the mail. They want to buy in person.
Mm-hmm.
That's the biggest thing that I think I'm missing out on from doing it online. Otherwise, it's pretty convenient to do it on. If you like doing things online, if you know how to use the internet pretty well, you know how to use the platform on like Etsy, for example, or I think Shopify, some sellers have been moving to. I don't know anything about it, but I've heard it's good. But yeah, there are definitely advantages to selling online versus in person, but you're going to miss out on a small group of people who don't want to purchase things that way.
Gotcha. What would you tell somebody who maybe comes up to you, or maybe they listen to this and they want to they ping you and say, "Hey Zeke, what would you recommend I do? I specialize in dog items, leashes or whatever. What would you recommend I do, or how would you recommend I get set up? What are your thoughts? What do you do?"
For selling items, like looking to get started selling stuff?
Yeah.
I would say definitely go for it, first of all. I mean, you're not going to lose anything in trying to do something new, for sure. Make sure that you take good pictures. That's the biggest thing that a lot of people miss out on at first, is they'll take pictures that just aren't quite right. The contrast is wrong. They take a picture of something green in the grass. It's a blurry photo. It's too far away. It's too close. And things like that, you just won't get clicked on if you're selling stuff online, and people won't end up buying it. That's the biggest thing I think that kills new shops, is not taking proper pictures, not taking enough pictures, and not putting enough of a description with it.
What did you do? Did you set up like a photo booth type thing so you can display your stuff, or do you just like have like a really good clean sheet or something you put on a table and you get it just right? Do you have a DSLR that you use? How do you take your pictures?
So my pictures, as much as I just talked about how great you should make your pictures, I started out with a really clean white sheet, and I tried that, and it just didn't look as good for some, and I don't know what it was, but it was like a clean white background, and I didn't like how it looked. And then I tried a black one. I didn't like how that looked. I tried it on a wood grain table. That looked pretty good. I have a light gray rug in one of my guest rooms, and I got big windows in that room, and all the sunlight on the really light carpet, it just contrasts really well, and that's how I take pretty much all of my photos now. I just lay it on the carpet however I want it, and I take a bunch of pictures. I look for which one, catches the eye, is aesthetically pleasing. I make sure they're not blurry. I'm just using my phone. I have an iPhone SE, the new one, not the iPhone 4 equivalent, as much as I loved my old iPhone 4. But, I take basic photos and I make them consistent. I make sure they're not blurry. I make sure that the item is standing out from the carpet and it's not looking, it's not blending in. And I've had fairly good success with that. So just whatever looks good to you, I think, as long as it looks good, as long as you're thinking about making it look decent, thinking about what people are going to see.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think white sometimes can be almost too drastic of a background. Gray, I was thinking, as you were saying that, I was thinking, man, gray is perfect. So I'm glad to think I'm not the only one. I've also used kind of like a taupe. If I'm not dealing with browns, if you're dealing with a black or blue, a taupe I found really works well too. So, and I use my Android phone, so considering I think a lot of the new phones have cameras just as good or nearly as good as DSLRs, you probably can't go wrong that way. Yeah,
for sure.
So I heard you say whips, and I know you that's probably your most popular. What would you say your second most popular item is?
Leashes, actually, which is funny because I never really thought that was what was going to happen. I thought that my belts that I was so proud of and that I wore everywhere, and I always tucked my shirt in so I could try and get somebody to ask me about my belt. I thought that would be a big seller. I've literally never sold a single belt.
Really?
But yeah, not one. I've done a couple different designs and I've never been able to get a click on them. So at this point, leashes have been selling really well. People like buying a Paracord leash, I think, because they can customize it so much. They get to pick whatever color, whatever design they want.
Yep.
And then, you make it to the length they want. And it's worked out really well for me, selling leashes. I've sold probably half as many as I have whips, which is a lot. So that's been going well, I guess.
That's cool. Well, and I'll share with you. I know one of the things I was doing with belts, and it's a niche market, I will admit, but I sold quite a few. I call them survivalist belts. So for hunters, people who are big into hiking, survival type stuff, it's basically one singular cord, and you can have 80 to 100 feet just by pulling it, and it'll come just undo one knot, and you can unwind it and have that much cord for whatever you need. So
okay,
it really limits the designs, but I'll tell you what, the people who are really big into survivalists, I had one guy, he's like, give me a black, give me a brown, give me a gray, give me a blue.
Holy cow.
Okay. And, my fingers were about numb afterwards, but
I'll bet.
So what tools do you use? I mean, let's say you get a whip order. What tools do you need to do that?
Whip specific tools, you definitely need a vise. It's really hard to make a whip straight without a vise.
Yep.
In my experience, I know a lot of people who don't use the vise. I don't know how they do it. They're magicians apparently. Every time I make one without a vise, I end up with all kinds of twists in it. It doesn't look good. So definitely a vise. In general, I use forceps or hemostats.
Yep.
Those come in really handy. I use those all the time. Sharp pair of scissors, really good. A flathead screwdriver, a little micro screwdriver, is really good for adjusting your pattern after the fact if you've messed something up. I used a nail punch as a marlin spike for about 10 years, like a little DeWalt nail punch. Yeah, and it worked really well. It was like a $3 item. It's still floating around my bag somewhere, but I was given a very nice brass marlin spike for Christmas this year, so I've been using the snot out of that. But you definitely need a marlin spike equivalent if you're doing much more than macrame style knot work.
I have still to this day never used a marlin spike. I continue to use a small micro flathead screwdriver that I was using when I first started. And I don't know why. It's a comfort thing. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So.
Yeah, definitely a nail punch if you're not looking to drop a bunch of money on a nice marlin spike. I mean, literally just a nail punch. It's not too sharp. It's not too blunt.
Yep.
And it's really comfortable in the hand.
So do you have, since you use microcord, do you have both regular and micro fids too?
Yes, I have the Type 1, Type 2, and Type 3 fids. I have the Tandy, I think it's Tandy Leather brand, Permalock needle. I've got a couple of off-brand Type 2 equivalent needles. I've got all kinds of fids laying around.
Yeah. So why paracord instead of leather? I mean, you were just talking about leather. I know some guys who they start with paracord, move on to leather. or they use other stuff. They get into other things. Why paracord?
Paracord, it's really versatile. It's got great utility. It ties really well. It's really consistent. You can get insane amounts of it in insane different colors and patterns, and it'll always be, even if you're going brand to brand, fairly equivalent to where you're not tying a small cord to a big cord.
Mm-hmm.
Pardon me. And it's just easy, I think, is why I've fallen into paracord. It's easy to use. It's easy to get. It's easy to make it look good, keep it consistent. As far as, moving on to leather, I don't know why I haven't used any leather yet. It's something I'd be interested in doing. I've got no connections in the area, though, for people who have worked with leather, and I don't want to start throwing leather stuff together and thinking it's good just to find out that I've been doing something horribly wrong.
Yeah, I looked into it, and it can get incredibly expensive, but boy, you can make some cool things with it too.
Yeah.
So this is a popular thing I see on Reddit. I see it on the Facebook groups. What kind of lighter, what kind of flame do you use? Are you a candle or / Zippo guy? Or are you a butane lighter guy? Are you a Bic guy? What do you do?
So I am largely Bic lighters recently. Historically, always jet lighters. I've always liked having a jet lighter because I can control the direction of the flame really well.
Yep.
Not, affected by gravity and the fire rising and all that. But because I'm making whips now, I have to cut strands and then touch them before they completely harden.
Mm-hmm.
And jet lighters get it so hot that you end up burning your fingers really bad. So I found that Bic lighters make it easier to control how hot the molten nylon I'm about to put my hand on is going to be. But historically, and my preference generally, is a nice jet lighter with a big tank on it, so I'm not refilling it all the time.
Yeah, I think it sounds like you're like a lot of us. You have a couple of each that you keep around.
Yes, 100%.
So what do you think? There's a lot of different things. I see some people that are really into doing a lot of charms. Other people like to keep it at basics. What are your thoughts on that? Like the charms and a lot of different. I don't want to call it almost like the Pandora of paracord, but what is your thought on that type of stuff versus just a basic bracelet or a basic item? Where do you side on that? What's your feelings?
Aesthetically, I like basic. I occasionally like a nice brass bead in there. I don't mind that. I think it still lends itself to that. I don't really know what the word I'm looking for is, but that paracord aesthetic, which is not very jewelry decorative, even though it is used that way. So personally, that's what I prefer. I don't mind seeing other people using everything to plastic beads I've seen used on paracord. I would never do that personally, and I don't know why. I'm not so egotistical about it, but I would never want to do that personally.
Yeah. I'm kind of with you. I tend to do if I want something to show my team colors, I'll just make a bracelet, maybe a herringbone style with a little micro cord with my team colors on it or something.
Mm-hmm.
But that's about as showy as I get.
Yeah.
So are you a Mad Max style or end where you slide and tuck, or are you more like clips for your bracelets?
I have never done really well selling bracelets, so personally, I almost always use a buckle just because I know how big my wrist is, and so I can make something that's always going to fit me. Mm-hmm. I do like the Mad Max style where you slide it and tuck it. I've made a few of them, but I've always got buckles lying around, and I know what size my wrist is, and so I generally end up defaulting to a buckle. But I do like the look of the slide and tuck Mad Bank style bracelet.
I've moved 100% over to that,
Yeah.
personally. But yeah, I see the pros and cons of both. So I guess really the only other thing I have is if people want to look you up, if they want to check out your stuff, where can they find you?
Etsy, Pinterest, and Instagram. I'm not very active on Pinterest. I'm very active on Instagram, and I'm obviously extremely active on Etsy. It's the only place that I'm selling at this point. Just Paracord by Zeke. Just Paracord, BYZEKE on Etsy and Instagram. You can find me.
Great, and I'll put a link down below in the description for everybody. So, Zeke, I want to thank you. This has been a great 30-plus minutes. I think it's educational for everybody, and it's great to hear what's going on, and that we got somebody who's successful. So I appreciate it, and until next time, keep paracording. Later.